guys, welcome back to the channel. This is HowFast. Today we're going to continue where we left off, replacing all of the suspension on my 2011 BMW 328i with Xdrive named Vroomhilda. So we're replacing it with some Bilstein B12 and some drilled and slotted rotors and pads from Max Brakes. We'll continue right now where we left off last time. I had the coilover, removed the coilover, just tapping down on the top of this, leaving the top connected, because it was really fighting me to come up, but I got it out, no problem. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to clean up everything down here and get it ready for some paint. So we got the new caps setting on there, everything feels right, looks like we got everything we need. Also, stopped by and picked up my the aluminum bolts for the gasket in the engine bay. So we now have everything we need to do all the maintenance on Hilde here to get her back to being virtually a perfect car again. So let's get started putting the front strut assembly together. Okay, first thing we're going to do is get a spring compressor, squeeze this down. I've heard you could do this with a friend if you guys, really want to get rough with it and get it on, but I'm all by myself out here in the middle of nowhere, and obviously the tool's here, so why wouldn't I do this? So if you have the tool, use the tool. It's the right way to do it, but if you don't, there are ways around it. So this can go up onto here, like something like this. There is a, at the bottom of the strut there's a rubber mount. Make sure that the spring is seated in there correctly. I don't know if you can see that in there. On top of that goes our new aluminum piece with there's another rubber mount that I've just stuck onto the bottom here. It goes on here. That lines up with this piece here. Let's see. Let's go together. Then take this washer. Come here. There's another washer here that goes on the back of these greased bearings. Like that, and that goes on top, and then the nut. Tighten that down, assembled strut. Now, to put this nut on, you'll need a 22 mil socket. There's special sockets for this, but if you're like me, you just make something. So I took one of my 22 mil sockets, I ground down some edges, stuck it onto a pair of vice grips. You'll need that same Allen key, which was the number 6 for the top here, and then you just throw this on the top, put the Allen key in the middle, hold it in place, and crank it down. Now we should be able to release. Make sure everything's seated properly. We should be able to release the spring compressor, and then we can get started on the next one. So this is the color that actually the boys chose. I let them pick the color. So this is the color my calipers are going to go, and the carrier as well. So I'm going to put some black on the spindle, and we're going to do some primer and blue on the caliper. Okay, I got the blue on the carrier, blue on the caliper. Last thing we got to do here is put some paint on this rotor so that it doesn't rust up. So I've just got some black Rust-Oleum. I'm going to paint up the hub portion here and slap this all back together. Okay, new struts in. What I did is I bolted it in the top, and then I fished it into the bottom, and then I put a jack underneath and raised it up. And that just slid everything in. When you're doing this, pay attention, make sure you have the right strut on the right side, and then also on the back you'll see these are like kind of like alignment pins that go into that slot on the back of the lower strut mount. So make sure those slide in all the way down. I think I can see mine's bottomed out right now, so it leaves about a half inch or so. You can see here, half inch or so between that line. So I'm going to put on the dust cover. Then we will put on the brakes, clean them up, and reinstall the caliper. So there's 3 13 mil nuts that have to be tightened at the top, along with that E14 Torx, reverse Torx. Before you slide this in, you want to use, there's a small paper gasket that fits up here, probably prevents squeaking against the top of the shock tower. You put that in, slide everything up, lock everything down, when you get to your brake caliper, use a C-clamp and just use the old brake pad and compress the piston within the caliper so that you can easily slide your new brake pads over your new rotor. So once that's in, you put a little bit of anti-squeal on the back of the pads and then slip your anti-rattle clip back on. Tighten everything back down in the reverse order that we took it apart the other day, and that's done. That's done. So I'm going to throw the wheel on here. I'm going to get started on the other side. I'll catch up with you guys when we get started on the back. I was just about to throw the tires back on, and then I thought, why don't I put my summer tires and wheels on? I had these on because I had worn down the rubber on the back of this set pretty badly, and I didn't want to run these in the front and these in the back, so I put all 4 of these on. But I think it's time to get some new tires for the back after we do these rear camber arms. The new set of tires that we'll put on there should last quite a bit longer, so I'm going to put these on right now. Before you guys jack up the back, make sure you chalk the wheels. Really important for guys with rear wheel drive cars. Not as important for all wheel drive, but I mean, don't skimp out, right? It's safety. Don't get under the car unless it's safe. So just to keep the car from rolling, you just hit your brakes in the front so they're not squeezed. You know, the car, make sure it's always in gear, and just take every precaution. So these wheels are a 162, I believe, and they're off the 2006 E90s. They're an 18-inch wheel. Originally the car came with 17s and they look like this, but I didn't really like those. They were square setup. This is actually a staggered setup. So I have two 25s in the front and two 55s in the back. And when you're doing this on an all-wheel drive car, you have to keep a couple things in mind. Here are the I think these are 16-inch tires, the steel wheels that I have. But I mean, if you look at them, if you look at them in a stack, they're the same rotational diameter. Okay, so the rotational diameter of the tire, which measures out, you can look this up online, but you're allowed to be within 1% so that it doesn't freak out the computer, the all-wheel drive computer on the BMW. So whenever you're doing this, you can do a staggered setup, but always be conscious and cognizant of the wheel size you're doing, because, for example, these are both 18-inch wheels, but this is a 35 sidewall. This is I think a 225 40 18, so it's a 40 sidewall there, and this is a 255 35 18. So because if you were to run a 40 sidewall on this, that would push the size of the tire up outside of that 1%. So it's really, I mean, that 5 mil or whatever that difference is almost unnoticeable, but your computer will notice it. So keep that in mind if you guys ever want to do a staggered setup on an all-wheel drive car. I'm imagining, I don't think it's just E90s, I'm sure on all-wheel drive cars that's probably the condition. So back ends up, let's get started on these. Alright, rear brakes on the E90 BMW. Start with the number 7 Allen wrench, just like the front. You have a spring clip that's in here like this. You can just pry against the hub and you can just pop it off that way. Once you get all the 2 bolts in the back loose, you can pull from the back, give it a good yank, and that should compress the piston enough that you can just slip this off. I'm going to pull that off, I'm going to pull the rotor off, I'm going to pull the dust shield off, and then we're going to get access to all of this. Then we're going to get into the trunk and start pulling the top of this shock off. These just, for some reason, get corroded so bad, and I had covered this in anti-seize before, and it still fought me to come off. So you have to take a hammer, you got to kind of whack it around, smack it all around here, and I mean, even if you need to, you get a little bit aggressive and hit it on the ends and the backside, and it eventually breaks loose. So mine was giving me a little bit of trouble because my brake shoes need adjustment, and that was something I was hearing on the car as I was driving. It was like you'd hear this dragging, and it was driving me crazy. One of the main reasons why I wanted to do the brakes. So that's just a simple, you know, a simple adjustment here, and we pull all that in. We'll do that before we put the new rotor on, but keep that in mind if when it comes to taking these off, taking these rotors off, if you have any problems and it's like sticking and you're having a hard time, these could be grabbing on the inside here, right? These are for your e-brake, and these grab on the inside here. So I had to struggle with mine a little bit to get it off, but I kind of expected that because that was the sound I was hearing. So that's all fixed, or not fixed, that's all removed now. So dust shield, and then we can actually start diving into the suspension finally. Okay, once you have all of your carpets and interior panels out here, if you want to know how to take this stuff out, you can check out, I put up a video last year when I did the rear coilovers on this car, so I'll put a link for that one right there. I'll put a link for that one right there. And you guys can figure out how you can watch how to take all these panels out. But once you get all those out, what we're going for is in the top here. Top of the shock tower, the rear shock tower. Be very careful when you're taking that nut off. I can't stress that enough. There is a void down here, be like in here and in here, and if you drop that nut, it's going to ruin your day. Ask me how I know that. Experience. Bad experience. Anyway, loosen that off, and we're going to loosen the bottom off here, which you have to get your coilover wrenches so you can hold this thing in place while you undo the bottom bolt or bottom nut. So I'm going to undo those right now, and then we'll slip that shock out of there. Alright, after you get that 17 mil off the bottom of the shock, you'll want to get a 14 mil and a short extension on your ratchet, and then you can reach up in here and start taking this one off. Like I said, extra careful, don't drop it. And also I should mention that up at the top on the inside of your wheel well, you'll notice that there's a flat spot on the top of your shock. Get a pair of vice grips or something, clamp it on there so that this doesn't spin while you're turning up top. Alright, you can press once you get it out of it, you can press it down a bit. Should be a bit easier to pull out. Here she is, and we just got to get that spring. Alright, now that the shock is out, we're going to get the spring out. So the way we're going to do that, so we're going to put we're going to put a jack underneath the spring, and then we're going to loosen off this bolt here, and there's a nut on the other side. They're both 21 mils. So get your impact, put a jack under it, put a little pressure on it just so that it just doesn't want to swing, and then we'll once we unbolt that lower swing arm, we should be able to just drop that down nice and easy, pull that spring out, and put the new ones in. Okay, I've got that bolt out. Just going to push down on the swing arm now. Pull the spring and upper and lower mounts out. There's the spring, and there's the upper. Last thing we need to take out is this, I guess it's, what is that, a bushing? That is for at the very bottom of the swing arm. Of course, what are you going to need to get that out? Another one of these E-Torques. This one is a number 12. Alright, everything's out. So now it's time for the camber adjustment arms. So those are located here at the very top. I believe they're 18 mils, so we need a box end wrench, and I mean, if you can get an impact on this one, that's great. That one's going to be less fun. Those are going to get replaced with these. Those are the Megan arms that are adjustable now, so we should be able to take a bit of that negative camber out of the back here. As I said before, these cars come with a lot of negative camber. Well, a bit of negative camber already, but when you drop them down and you start driving them lowered, right through to the cords. Pretty quick too, to be honest. So I'm going to pull this arm out here, and then I think I'm just going to adjust these to be the exact same length as the stock ones, and then when I take it in for an alignment, and we'll get this all squared away at that time. Alright, that 18 mil here, like I said, boxed in at the end, came out pretty good. Just make sure you get a short socket. And this piece just slips out. That was easy. Okay, good stuff. Now, we'll just lengthen these out until our bolt holes align. Should be back to stock-ish. And then once we, like I said, once we get it in for an alignment, these guys can fine-tune all this for me. Okay, for these arms, what you gotta do is you loosen these off, and then you spin the heim joints out till they get to the same measurement, and then you tighten these back down and lock them in place. I'm gonna, you know, I imagine you could probably do all to one side if you wanted to. I don't know how much of this threaded bar is in here, but I'm just gonna even it out on both sides to play it safe. So I'm gonna do this one up and then I'm gonna throw it back in the car. All right, when you go to throw this piece, when you go to throw this arm back in, you're gonna notice that the two ends aren't identical, right? There is a front and a back to these. So the one that has this bevel on it is the side that's outer. So that's the outer side behind the hub here. So that fits into, that's where it goes, inside there. So that's the front. And that's, that you need to make sure that you put this thing in on the beveled side that goes in there. So that'll go in the front, like that, ready to go. Boom! Just like that. Okay, so grab your spring. You can reuse your old, I don't know what this would be. What would this be, like a shock absorber? You can use this from the old one, but I bought a whole new set of everything, so new shock mount at the bottom. What the hell am I going to call this thing? I don't know what this is. This is I don't know, some kind of a shock absorber for the upper spring mount and lower spring mount. I just made that up. So there's what they're called. Definitely going to need one of these if you had a set of coilovers. This is still in, but this is replaced with that adjustable piece that we saw off the coilover, right? So if you guys are pulling out a set of coilovers, make sure you order this lower, whatever the hell I just called it. Alright, so this, whatever the heck we're calling it, you have to look at it. It's definitely not just a circle that you slap in there. So there's really only one way that this piece goes and fits in here, and if you look, you can see there's like a couple corners on it. If you find the spot where it all goes together, it just wants to slip in just right. So there it is, right there. Got it. Alrighty, on to the rear shocks. These, unlike the front, there isn't a left or right, so it doesn't really matter. I've already assembled these, and if you guys are interested, there is a website called realoem.com. All sorts of BMW stuff, every part and piece labeled, broken down, exploded view. Go to that website, check it out. They'll show you exactly how to put these together if you have any questions. So springs in, that mount, that like shock absorber on the bottom, and that mount is in. So now it's just putting the shock in and tightening everything up, and we should be done. Other than painting, we got to clean everything, and we got to paint that caliper. So we'll do that after. So just like when I was pulling this out, I find it's really a bit easier if you just put a little bit of pressure down. See if you can compress the shock a bit. There we go. Okay, for the top here, you have to get a number 5 Allen and a 16 mil box end wrench. Put the Allen in the top, crank it down. So that's tight. Everything down here is tight. The only thing that is left is this monster bolt for the swing arm. So I'm going to push that up into place, and this side, other than painting and the, reassembling the brakes, is done. Alright boys, all done, finally. The other side actually gave me a bit more trouble, like on the passenger side, but everything's all back together, everything's all cleaned up, everything's painted. So now it's time to put on the summer wheels, new tires on it, and get it aligned. So let's throw these on and lower the car back down. Finally be done with this portion of the job. All back on the ground, all four. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If there's anything, any tools or anything that I forgot to mention in the video, please comment below. I'd be happy to help and let you know what the part, what the tool was. Next step on this would be to go out and break your new brakes in. They have to be that they run through a couple heat cycles so that the pad and the rotor they get to know each other really well. So I want to go do that, but there actually is still something yet to be done on the car, and that is the oil filter housing gasket. So if you guys have an N52 engine, it's a very common problem with these cars, and I mean these cars are very good. They're pretty reliable as long as you're up on the maintenance. But one thing about them that's prone to failure is the oil filter housing gasket, and they do leak. It's a slow leak, and it's kind of made a mess of the front of my engine block. So I'd like to get in there, pull off some of the cowling that's in there, replace that gasket, clean everything up in there before I actually take this car out, because once that's done, she's back to being better than she was when I first got her almost 5 years ago now. So we'll get to that gasket in the next part to this series, but you guys make sure to stick around and catch that if you're interested. If you're looking for any of our shirts, you can get us at HowFast.ca, and you can find our shirts and a lot of our episodes and all sorts of stuff on there. We can get us on Facebook or Instagram. We're all over the place, so make sure you guys get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Find out how fast we can make this car go.